Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing some postpartum plant care. This is the first time I will actually be taking care of my plants myself after delivering my son about 3 weeks ago. My friends and family have been taking care of my plants for me because I just needed to not. I hit massive burnout with my plants not too long ago, so my family has been really nice and has been taking care of these things for me. Before we get into this video, I do just want to thank real quick Luminous Grow Lights, which is the grow lights I use. It's this one. It's super pretty. It's homemade. The lights are super incredible. They're really strong, and they actually are better than the leading market competition. Honestly, it's the only reason my plants are still doing so good. They're getting so much light from it and they love it. So thank you so much, Luminous Grow Lights, for always being there for me and my plants, even when I am delivering a human child. So I thought to make this video complete, we would do some postpartum thoughts as well as some postpartum plant care. There's a couple plants I want to do some stuff with. Let me locate them. I definitely want to figure out something better to do with this plate of Monstera Deliciosa Aurea Variegata and my Spiritus Sancti. I think I'm ready to give them both a better solution. I want to do something about this variegated Monstera Alba Adansonii. I kind of thought we'll just throw some soil in there. I would like to trim this sad Florida Beauty. It is giving a new growth point, so that is exciting, but these leaves are dead, so I thought we'll clean that up. I also want to wipe down these leaves on my Monstera Spa Peru Variegata, and then also probably give this Florida Beauty a better home environment than just this like thing of moss. I don't know how this has been surviving at all. I have zero idea. I think maybe we also upgrade my variegated Micans Aurea into a bigger container. It's just like, it's really peeking out here. It's literally growing up into that little knob. So, and I do have some bigger jars I can put it in. The other stuff I want to do, I can't because I actually do not have any moss right now. So I can't do anything about anything that would need moss, like additional air layering. I do want to air layer my Syndapsus Jade, this thing. Super pretty plant. And I also need to upgrade the air layering on my Pink Princess and my Strawberry Shake, but again, we can't really do anything about that right now. Okay, we've got our cute little table, and now let's get to work. I guess there's not like a lot to do, but there's enough that I want to get it taken care of. I do have black gold soil, which we're gonna be using. I think let's start with the Micans first because I know exactly what I want to do with this one. This is a jar I got at a Goodwill. Someone literally took either like an old school water jug or some kind of alcohol bottle and used a glass cutter and then put it in this pot to make a terrarium. And it had a cap on it, but it didn't really fit well, so I am going to take, I don't know, like one of my corks from something else, or I'll just make my own. Yeah, so my birth was wild. It was, except for like the fear that I had going into it, it was very good. Like if you take away how terrified I was, it was probably one of the best births anyone could hope to have. So I feel really happy about that because I don't know, there's no other way to say it. I always thought I was gonna die in childbirth. I don't know why. I just always had this horrible fear that my life would end when I gave birth. And it originated from, you can laugh, it's okay, it's funny, the scene in Star Wars where Padme dies after giving birth to Luke and Leia. I know that like her death was not caused by the childbirth, it was caused by the trauma that she experienced beforehand. But when you're really, really little, you don't think about stuff like that. You just see, oh, she just died during childbirth. So that stuck with me forever. I was also really, really scared, like a lot of women, of getting an epidural. And then you'll be like, well, Ashley, if you're so scared of it, like, you don't have to get it. It's not a requirement. I know it's not a requirement, but it wasn't like a goal of mine to do birth without one. And because of some relatively resolved issues with a family member that kind of like really scared me out of getting an epidural my entire life, I have just had the biggest fear of the epidural. And that person has since apologized to me for giving me those fears. It didn't change how terrified I was to actually have the procedure done. I learned a lot through, you guys I'm sure watch her, Harley G. My friend Harley, when she gave birth, like she was texting me through a large part of it before things got like really serious, was telling me about her experience and how things were going, and then we obviously talked about it afterwards, and I tried to learn a lot from her, the experience and like what happened with her that maybe like I wouldn't want to experience, or you know, just trying to learn from her experience as much as possible, because she's the only friend I have that had ever at that time given birth. It was just like kind of trying to do homework, I guess. I don't know. The point is that I was absolutely terrified of getting an epidural, but despite that, I ended up getting one anyways, and I cried so hard from just the fear, okay? Like how terrified I was of it. And it didn't even hurt that bad. It just kind of felt like a bee sting. And if you've never had an epidural or you've never like looked into how it works, essentially they give you this numbing shot into your spine, which sounds terrifying. It sounds horrifying. It sounds dystopian. But then after that, you don't feel anything. That is pretty cool. I'm gonna put this variegated ad insomniae in with these variegated Micans. Yeah, so they give you an injection into your spine, which numbs you, and then they put in this little catheter. And the epidural, by the way, it doesn't like, it's not something that they give you and then that's it, like a shot, which is what I always thought it was. It's actually a catheter, a very, very, very thin tube that connects into your back and actually stays in there. They tape it to your back, but it's really flexible. I mean, it's like a millimeter circumference. Like it's so small. So I was crying, Chris was there, and they kept asking me for my consent for the epidural, because I kept being like, I was just crying my eyes out, and I'd be like, I'm so scared, and they'd be like, you want it, right? And I was like, yes, I want the epidural. And then I just cry about it more, and they're like, we have to make sure, do you actually want the epidural? So it was all the way up until the anesthesiologist came in, and then they asked me one more time if I did actually want it, and I was like, yes, I do actually want it. I'm sorry that I'm a baby. And so they had me like hold on to like this pillow, and then I was holding Chris's hands, and I squeezed the shit out of his hands, and I just cried. And luckily I didn't have any contractions during the point of getting the epidural where you would have had to actually sit still. And then when I got admitted, I was talking to the midwife, and she was like, so you want to do, like, what do you want to do for pain management? And I just went epidural, like I want to do the epidural, because I was like crying every single contraction at this point. And she was like, okay, we can do the epidural, but like, do you have any concerns? And I was like, yes, I have a lot of concerns. I'm worried that if I get the epidural, it's going to stop my labor, and then you're going to need to give me Pitocin, and then the Pitocin is going to start killing my baby, and then you're going to have to give me a C-section. And she was like, that's a lot. She assured me that that is a very rare thing that happens. And I said that I felt like if I just like toughed it out, that maybe it would mean my labor would continue. And she was like, well, you know, just because your labor continues doesn't mean that we won't still need to give you Pitocin. Because if you don't know what Pitocin is, it's like oxytocin, but it's a synthetic. And it's what keeps, it like ramps up your contractions. It makes them bigger and makes you progress better in labor. But it gives you like way more painful contractions, and most people get their epidural after they've already had Pitocin. So usually they don't get an epidural before Pitocin, because people want to like experience labor, and then they'll get to a point where they can't take it anymore, and then they'll want an epidural, and you know, it's a whole thing. So, you know, maybe I'm just gonna like combine a bunch of things in here. Do you need me?
No, I love you.
I love you too. I'm putting my Burley Marks fantasy in here too. I think we're just making like an impromptu little terrarium. Anyways, so they gave me the epidural, and it really just felt like a bee sting. And after we got it, I was so relieved. Like, it was the scariest choice I've probably like ever made to get that done. And I'm so glad I did it, just because there's so many perks to the epidural. So like when you get the epidural, obviously it takes the pain of the contractions away, and my epidural was successful, so they didn't need to redo it, and they also didn't like, it didn't fail. I had perfect like coverage. The only downside that I had with my epidural was it made me really, really itchy anywhere that anything was touching me. So I eventually ended up like getting completely naked, and I ended up delivering naked, which was not part of the plan, and I didn't prefer it. But the alternative was turning off the epidural and experiencing all the contractions. So, and then as soon as my epidural wore off, the itchiness went away. So that was good. But if you tear with an epidural, you obviously can't feel the tear. If they have to give you an episiotomy, they don't have to numb you with a shot directly into your, you know, because you already have the numbness. And if you need a C-section, you're already numb. And so they'll turn the epidural into a spinal block, and then they'll just give you a spinal block instead, which is great. So like it just negates the need to have all of these other different things. Anyways, so just getting the epidural, it just negates a bunch of other things that could go wrong or could happen. So I highly recommend it. It was really great because I tore and needed stitches. They didn't have to give me any additional numbing. I didn't feel myself tear. I didn't feel the pain of delivery. And my delivery went really smooth, but I'm gonna make a whole video about my delivery, so I'm not gonna talk exceptionally about that now. But if you take away how mortally terrified I was of getting the epidural, and then realizing that because I had an epidural, I needed to have a catheter, that was also horrible. My only experience with a catheter in the past has been one all the way up into my kidneys for kidney stone surgery. I thought that when they told me I was going to have a catheter, that they were going to be running it all the way up into my kidneys, which is obviously not what they did. That was my understanding. And they're like, we have to empty your bladder. And I was just crying my eyes out because I really did not want a catheter. It's just one of my biggest fears, again, because of a movie, because in Dumb and Dumber, when he pulls the catheter out, I'm just telling you guys, sometimes things stick with you forever and they just mess you up. Here's our cute little terrarium. Oh, you really can't see. There we go. We have Mikens Aurea, we have Adansonii albo variegata, Burley Marks Fantasy, Monstera obliqua, and I think that's it. I think that's it. It's cute. And then I'm gonna put a plug in the top so that the humidity stays in. That's cute. I like that. Okay. My feet are completely numb. So at first, like after my birth, I was just kind of thinking that I had a really terrible experience because of how much fear was there. But then I realized, girl, if you just erase how terrified you were, you actually had an amazing experience. So that's honestly what happened. I went into labor at 38 weeks. My labor went incredibly smoothly. He did this earlier and then he went right back to sleep. I can't tell if we're good or not. I didn't end up needing Pitocin. My labor progressed really, really well, and the epidural worked, and I only had to push for 12 minutes, and I was only in active labor for 4 hours. So me, oh gosh, I really dirtied my shirt. Me, who was so terrified of dying in childbirth, actually had a really safe labor. So that was really, really amazing. Because I just always kind of thought I would die in childbirth, I am having a difficult time processing the fact that now there's more to my life. And I know that sounds really stupid, and I part of me didn't actually think, you know, I would die, but I was so terrified of it and have been, because I mean, you get pregnant and then you have this huge body altering experience 9 months later, and there could be a complication, and like that could just be it, and you could just literally be dead in 9 months. And so that's where my brain was. So any of you who are like also terrified of giving birth, maybe that's something that you share with me, that same fear of that happening. And this leaf just looks a little funky because it was trapped. But yeah, so now that I've continued to live and actually had a really, really good delivery, I'm just kind of like having a hard time processing the fact that I actually did that, and that now things are just continuing on. Very weird. I'm working through it with my therapist because I had something similar happen to me in a different way, but with my wedding, and I didn't think I was gonna die at my wedding, like, don't worry. I like completely blacked out during the ceremony. Like, not in a medical way, like I didn't pass out, but I remember starting to walk down the aisle, and then I got just like so excited that I don't remember any of it at all. I only know what happened because we had our friend record it. I don't know, it's something with these big events, my brain just kind of like can't handle them. So that has been a really weird thing. After delivering, my experience with my husband has been really great. He's been really helpful. He has been an actual co-parent. I'm not one of those married single mothers that you see a lot of people unfortunately having to go through. My husband is so involved. And he's on paternity leave, so it's really fun because we're just like getting to spend all this time together. We actually took our son to go meet some of his coworkers yesterday, and that was really fun. Here's our really goofy Monstera Deliciosa Oreo. I think what we'll do next is we'll trim this. We'll leave this one leaf just because it's still kind of green. We'll remove these ones. But I was doing like really good, but I have had a really difficult time latching my son, and that was causing me to just spiral. Like, I was having a really good time postpartum, and then something just like triggered in me with the postpartum emotions, and I had 2 days where I was just having the absolute worst thoughts. It was like, I don't even want this baby. I'm stuck with this. I feel claustrophobic. Like, I have to do this forever now. Like, why did I make this decision? I'm not good enough to be a mother. Like, my brain was just spiraling, and I literally, I'm not even joking, I cried for 12 hours straight, and then intermittently before and after. Like, it was horrible. And it only got better when I stopped breastfeeding and instead started pumping and bottle feeding. And now that I've been pumping and bottle feeding, I am doing so good. I am literally on cloud 9, and I'm being careful with that, you know, because I know that I can still experience those scary postpartum emotions again. But yeah, we're 3 weeks out now, so I would say I feel like I'm doing a lot better. Before delivering, I did make the decision to seriously up my antidepressants that I'm on, and I started with a postpartum therapist. Like, specifically, she's trained in postpartum depression and like preventing that and working through it, because every woman in my family has come down with the worst postpartum depression like ever, and I really don't want that to happen to me, so I'm doing everything I can to prevent it. So we upped my Wellbutrin preemptively. It was supposed to be 2 weeks before I delivered, but then I went into labor at 38 weeks, so it was the week of delivery, and I started with the postpartum therapist. And then also, see if that fits. Can we fit that in? I think yes, but let's like fill up some soil in there first. And then also, I've been talking to my psychologist about maybe even adding, just temporarily, Zoloft to the mix. So I just really want to thrive. I don't want to be trapped. And those 2 days, I was just like completely helpless. I could not get out of the thoughts. And I didn't even want to read, which is a big deal because that's like the only thing I like doing now. I didn't want to talk. I was just like, it was really bad. Like, I can't talk about it fully on YouTube because my video would get demonetized, but it was really bad. I couldn't get out of that on my own. It took changing something, which was breastfeeding, to pumping and bottle feeding. So I don't want to be in a situation where I'm helpless like that. So I'm just trying to do everything in my power to prevent it, you know, try to come out of this thriving, because I feel like my son is only going to be able to thrive if I'm also thriving. And I don't know, I want to be there for everything. I don't want to just, I don't know, as someone who already is on like antidepressants and going through mental health things separately, I don't want this to tack on. I'm making just barely enough milk, which is kind of frustrating. I don't know if there's any of you out there who like weren't overproducers or underproducers, but you literally make exactly enough every single time. That has been my experience so far, which is definitely kind of frustrating, because I want to have a large stock. Like, I want I want a big supply just like on tap essentially. And I haven't even been able to freeze any milk at all once. So I'm glad I didn't buy a bunch of like milk bags and stuff like that for the freezer. I did try my own breast milk. I tried it after my husband told me that he had tried mine. And that was really cool because I didn't even ask him to do that. He just did that and then I tried it and I was like, oh yeah, you're kind of right. And we both just feel like it just kind of tastes like really sweet. For me personally, I feel like it tastes like when you add sugar to milk for your cereal. If you ever did that, maybe I was the only person who did that, I don't know. But it just tasted like really, really sweet milk and it was just kind of like watery. I always kind of like wondered, you know, what that would be like. I've gotten to figure that out. We're gonna put this Spirit of Sanctity in this jar to keep it extra moist and start transitioning it. I definitely thought I would be reading a lot more. That's for sure. I thought I would just like read, you know, while I'm breastfeeding or whatnot. And instead what I do when I'm feeding my son is just stare at him like a freak. Actually unreal. I just can't stop staring at him. All of the time I am just locked in, baby. Just staring right at my son. So I've substantially gotten to slow down on reading, which isn't super cool because there's a lot of books I want to read. I did read the Crescent City 3 book, which I don't want to talk about in this video because it's literally so brand new still, but something that has been fun is my husband and I started playing Pal World, which is that viral game. We both think it's going to be like the next big thing, like Minecraft. I think it's going to have huge staying power. So that'll be fun to see like what happens with that. And that has actually been helping a lot with like taking my mind off things. One of the most difficult things I'd say postpartum has been sleeping, because I am just so terrified something is gonna happen while he's asleep. It's just a lot. So one thing I can happily say that I have worked through is I no longer am having like intrusive thoughts about accidentally dropping him. That used to just circulate in my brain constantly. I would be like walking with him and all of a sudden I would just be like, wow, what if I dropped him and then blah, 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 like all these horrible things that could happen. Not having that issue anymore. With my delivery, I did have a 2nd-degree tear, so that's completely healed. It healed up in only, I would say just about 2.5, 3 weeks. It looks completely healed. It doesn't bleed anymore. That was interesting. I thought that the anatomy of the way that perineum tears worked is completely different than how they actually do work. So, and I guess just like a fun, cute little tidbit is that after the delivery, when they pulled because when you have an epidural, they can just like pull the placenta out of you, like via the umbilical cord. And the nurse that was gonna take it over to the medical bowl for the placenta, she dropped it on the floor. She dropped the placenta on the floor. I was already holding my son by then, and when I saw it happen, in my head, I just kind of thought like, did I really just watch an organ be dropped on the ground? And I did. The doctor literally just like threw up her hands and walked out of the room. She was like, I can't even with you. Ooh. Since postpartum, I'm not having any issues with eating anymore, so that is really good. The first 2 weeks were really hard with eating, and I honestly just think it was because I upped my Wellbutrin, and Wellbutrin can suppress your appetite. So now I'm not having any of those issues. Chris and I are doing a lot of home cooking. We're making a lot of like protein stuff and a lot of healthy food. Chris made his own pickles today. That was cool. We don't know how they taste yet, but we have homemade pickles now. Also really good French toast. I think that's it for the repotting part. We have the Spirit of Sanctity. Super cute. The Florida Beauty that was reverted. The trimmed down Florida Beauty that is not reverted and is growing back in. Eventually I'd like to pot those two together, but I don't want to do like a big, huge full repot right now. So then we have the Monstera Deliciosa Aurea that we put in a pot finally instead of just keeping it on a plate like a weirdo. And our new terrarium with our Monstera Obliqua, our Burley Marks Fantasy, the what am I trying to say? Mykins Aurea, and then Monstera Adansonii Albo Variegata. So So that's really cool. Trying to get you better light. There we go. I guess just tell you about my son. He's super cute. He's adorable, but I'm obviously biased, so, you know, maybe don't trust me. He recently just started cooing in his sleep here and there. So he'll just be dead asleep and then he'll just go, whoo! Just out of nowhere. That's the best thing in the world. He also does scream sneezes, so before he sneezes and sometimes directly after, he'll just scream. As if you've scared the crap out of him, he'll just scream. He's starting to smile a lot more in his sleep. That's really cute. I don't know, we're 3 weeks exactly today. Well, yesterday at 11:40 a.m. He's like a 4-ounce gamer right now, so he's drinking like 4 ounces almost every single feed, and a lot of the times he'll just fall directly asleep after eating. He loves movement, so right now he's in this little like automatic rocker thing, which has been amazing because putting him in a bassinet from holding him, he doesn't like that unless he's dead asleep. So we have gotten him to sleep in the bassinets sometimes, but it's definitely really complicated. Chris and I are kind of working in shifts right now. Today he's been one sleepy guy. I think I woke up around noon-ish and it's 5 right now, and he's just been asleep this entire time except for once where I changed his diaper and I gave him some milk. So I am trying to do the every 3-hour pumping thing, but I'm failing significantly. It really ends up being like every 4 hours because they want you to keep track of from when you started pumping, but right now for me, it takes about like 30 minutes to actually get everything out. So by the time I'm done pumping, I have to do it again in 2.5 hours. So there's times where I go 6 hours between pumping and times where I go 4 hours, and sometimes I'll go 3. When I pump after finishing this video, it will have been 4 hours. I don't know, everything is fine. Things are going pretty good. It's really weird having a baby. He's just kind of like a puppy, except it's much more high stakes. Okay, let's shine the leaves on this Peru. And then I think we'll call it. I am going to use my plant paper towels, my planter towels, to just get wet, and I'm just gonna wipe down these leaves. I think that my goals as far as like motherhood is going right now is I really, really don't want to develop a long-lasting postpartum depression. So that is definitely my biggest goal. My second goal right now is get him and me more comfortable with him sleeping in the bassinet instead of us just taking turns being awake. So we're slowly working on that one, but that's definitely the biggest hurdle right now. Like, I don't think I can remember, I think the last time Chris and I slept in the same bed for a full night's sleep was at the hospital. Oh, in the postpartum room at the hospital, we had a full-size bed. So we got to both sleep in the bed, which was really fun. Another goal I have is to just like learn how to manage my stress, because when my stress gets away from me, I just have a really hard time. And Chris is always really good about telling when I am about to kind of like start spazzing out from stress and start to get really frustrated. And so he'll kind of like help me delegate, and he'll help me with the specific things that are making me start to kind of like spaz out. So that has been really, really nice. Okay, cool. It's all shinied up now. No more dust on the leaves. Looks really good. So yeah, I think that that's it. Thank you for watching and for being here. Thank you for the warm welcome back. I posted a plant video and it got 4,000 views in a day, which is super cool. Hasn't happened in a long time. So I'm trying to come back. I am going to be doing book content still, but I think everything is going to be kind of merged together. I also want to do like stay-at-home mom content. Like, one of the videos I really want to film right now is organizing my son's room, because right now he kind of lives in the living room. Like, we are all kind of just living in the living room. Our desks have both been moved out into the living room. All of the bassinets are out here. Everything of his is out here. So right now his room is kind of just like a mess. It's like a glorified storage room. So I'd like to get some organization in there. So that's something I want to do. And then I also want to film, I think, like fixing up my bathroom and his bathroom. I want to make a lot of reading content, but it's so hard because there kind of just has to be like a specific reason you're talking, I feel like, about reading. Yeah, I don't know, but I am working on the Throne of Glass video, so I'm really excited for that. Well, thank you so much for watching and being here. Thank you again, Luminous Girlites, for keeping my plants alive while I deliver a human baby, and I'll see you guys in the next houseplant section. Goodbye.